You look at some African countries and they have an army, complete with 5-star generals, who have never even quelled a street riot, and they are generals. Your money goes into maintaining militaries, maintaining embassies that you don't need. You see why Africa is poor? All these 55 countries have embassies. If we were one, there would only be one ambassador for Africa in the United States of America. There would only be one army with regional policing. We can create a single Africa with a loose government, a confederal government, dealing only with foreign affairs and defense and monetary policy and general policy formulation, with different governance systems. That is the only way in which these narrow tribal instincts will be dampened.
Poverty alleviation has accelerated in the world's poorest countries in the recent years, but not fast enough in Africa, the so-called rich continent. According to recent estimates, the region's poor population has increased from 280 million to 420 million in the last 25 years, with an average poverty rate of 41, making Africa the poorest continent of all time. Given the fact that the wealthy African continent is adorned with glitter and glam of a plethora of resources enough to have summoned a host of colonialists into the continent, it is quite baffling to still be categorized as one of the poorest continents in existence. Gold, diamonds, oil, cotton, bauxite, uranium, iron ore, and other valuable resources have been discovered in these lands. Rich in heritage and culture, irrespective of these endowments, the continent is abode to some of the planet's poorest nations. Although a few nations are scaling up the global ladder of dominance and economic prosperity, the majority wallow in an almost embarrassing state of impoverishment. The cause of the rich, perhaps, if such a thing exists, one of the great mysteries surrounding the grouping of 49 nations located south of the Sahara Desert is how a continent abundant natural resources can have such a small impact on its people's quality of life over such a long period of time. It is especially disheartening for the numerous international organizations, foreign governments, and private companies and private groups that have worked since independence to promote regional development, agricultural production, better housing, education, healthcare, improved infrastructure, economic growth, and employment. A lot of talks are thrown about on this topic matter, with the masses speculating reasons for the appalling state of affairs. Often a range of causes is attributed to the phenomenon, including widespread corruption, dysfunctional democratic institutions and justice system, greedy multinational corporations, shady local and international allies, incompetent or ineffective international aid agencies, resource wars waged by domestic militias as well as outside armies, and remnants of colonialism and neo-colonialism. In this episode of Historical Africa, we will look into some of the root causes of the enigma presented by the Africa's state of destitution despite our boundless wealth of beauty resources. Kindly give our video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you are new here. Colonialism. Despite the fact that more than 5 decades have passed since colonialism's demise, the continent appears to be a loss as to how to emancipate its desolated population. To this day, several African countries still remain under the direct or indirect control of powerful nations. Unmistakable correlations expose the regressive effect this phenomenon imposes on continental development, with insightful arguments backing claims that point to modern-day colonialism. This concept explores the interference of foreign bodies in domestic decisions. The independence of some African nations is ridiculed as their sovereignty is leveled to just a superficial flag independence, where the national state of affairs before and after independence stays the same. But of course, all blame cannot be meted out on the foreign bodies who formed license for theirs and their country's benefit. Kleptocrats and self-centered African ruling officials are often accused of facilitating compromising alliances to maintain lucrative economic arrangements for personal gains. On the contrary, the glaring selfishness, carelessness, administration and lack of empathy from ruling bodies have ripped through the continent, drawing out frustrated gaps from indigenes and nationals. Recent strife within West Africa have stemmed from a plethora of attempted and sometimes coup in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, forcing ruling bodies such as the African Union to brainstorm causes and solutions for the recent developments in summits and conferences. These are indicators that should ignite a zeal to assess and reorient our positions on corruption, nepotism, tribalism, or human rights violations, accepting responsibilities as individuals in the cause and perhaps uniting as a dominant force capable of standing out with some of the global superpowers. Systems should be shaken so as to eliminate all bad fruit within the righteous tree of governance, leaving behind the ripened ants of justice and integrity. Bureaucracy corruption. Over the years, it seems the wings of corruption have cast dark shadows over major parts of the planet in Africa. The repulsive stench of its canker can be witnessed in almost all sectors of political systems, standing out as a stark cause of impeded economic and social development. The corrupt behavior of politicians and government officials harm the poor by preventing them from receiving government funding, assistance, and services. Since poor people rely heavily on public services, they are more likely to be met with demands for bribe in order to receive assistance. Low-income households and the impoverished are susceptible to demands for bribes in exchange for services, particularly for their heavy reliance on the government. Typical studies have usually assessed the causes and effects of corruption in larger sample sizes, such as urban and peri-urban areas, yet recommendations have called for a microscopic view in the micro-foundation of bribery and corruption, and it is linked to poverty. This is a boring and unethical behavior. Ensure that basic necessities that should be available for the masses are hoarded greedily by upper class, shattering all hopes of the masses. On ending gap between rich and poor, bad leadership, and inefficient resource management, reports surrounding certain diamond-producing nations have highlighted the over- and underestimated of production to support illegal trade, under-reporting of production corruption and tax evasion, suggesting a clear lack of transparency. In addition to this, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development report estimates that $88.6 billion or 3.7% of Africa's GDP is lost to illicit capital flight. Each year, according to the report, illicit financial flows, cross-border movement of money and assets that are illegal in their origin, transfer or use these outflows equal just a little below the total annual inflows of official development assistance of $48 billion and in $54 billion yearly foreign direct investment received by African countries from 2013 to 2015. Finally, the vast majority of revenue generated by resource extraction such as oil, coal, gold, and so on is funneled into the pocket of political elite. This reflects an uneven distribution of national income among socio-economic classes. Access to higher and quality education is considered one of the most vital foundations for prosperous nations. Strong evidence has unearthed the correspondence of education directly on poverty, proving that strong reading, writing, and numeracy are essential ingredients that contribute to landing high-paying jobs. Furthermore, it provides individuals with the awareness required to thrive in a competitive world. Well-trained and skilled labor is critical to the success of any economy, yet unlike other countries, Africa's major population categorized under the unskilled group of laborers due to poor technology, infrastructure, and lack of investment in training and development. Despite high demand, resource extraction is sometimes undertaken through illegal means by inexperienced and unskilled labor, such as the illegal mining techniques, resulting in low-quality final products and casualties. Despite the fact that Africa is endowed with natural resources and jewels, its citizens are incapable of making well-considered and informed decisions. Without a doubt, natural resources are critical for economic development, but improved education and enhanced skill training could be two of the key components to unlocking a facilitated climb up the ladder of status for most Africans. In conclusion, rather than more projects and funds, Africa requires more business knowledge to identify opportunities and assist itself. The way forward for Africa, a lot will be required for an industrial revolution, modernization, and overall continental progress. All stakeholders, nationals, and the general population should assume responsibility and an obligatory sense of stewardship towards the continent. Transparency should be the first and most important thing to access, particularly as it could be the piece that encourages honest, positive, and selfless dealings. To ultimately prioritize continental development over personal gains, in the process, regulatory bodies should identify ideal alliance with cooperation that will seek to generate optimum revenue in all sectors, including the mining industry, forestry, fishery, agriculture, health, education, and so on. Kwame Nkrumah, while addressing the African freedom fighters in 1958,
Africa
he said,
"Is far from being poor. It's Africans who are poor, not Africa."